My name is Sophia Renner. I'm 35 years old. And on the morning of the most important day of my life, my phone rang at 6:52 a.m. I was sitting at a vanity mirror in a bridal suite on the 14th floor of the Whitmore Hotel, still in a white robe, hair half pinned, my maid of honor behind me with a curling iron she hadn't plugged in yet because we'd been talking too much. The window behind us looked out over the city. The sky was that particular shade of pale gold that only exists for about 20 minutes in early morning before the day decides what it wants to be. My phone was face up on the vanity. The name on the screen was Harrison Velt, my boss, founder and managing partner of Velt Strategic Communications, the firm I had given 7 years of my life to. The firm I had helped build from 11 clients and a rented floor of a co-working space into one of the most recognized communications consultancies on the East Coast. My maid of honor, Priya, looked at the screen, then at me. "Do not answer that," she said. I answered it. "Sophia." His voice was smooth, controlled. Harrison Velt had a voice engineered for confidence. It was the first thing clients noticed about him and the last thing you forgot. "I need to tell you something before you hear it somewhere else. Harrison, I get married in 5 hours. I know, and I genuinely hate the timing, but the partners voted last night. Your position is being restructured. We're moving the entire strategic division under Marcus's umbrella. HR will reach out Monday with the paperwork." The curling iron clicked against the vanity as Priya set it down. I looked at my reflection. White robe, half-pinned hair. The face of a woman who had just been fired by the man she'd made successful. "Sophia, are you there?" "Yes," I said. "I'm here. I really am sorry about." I hung up. Priya was staring at me. Her mouth was open. I set the phone face down on the vanity, picked up my coffee, took a sip. "Sophia, what just? Can you plug in the curling iron?" I said. "We're going to lose the morning." She stared at me for 3 more seconds. Then she plugged in the curling iron. I did not tell my husband, James, until 2 days into our honeymoon, because I refused to let Harrison Velt take that day from us. He had taken enough. That was 3 years ago. Last month, Velt Strategic Communications collapsed. A client fraud scandal, 2 senior partners under investigation, and a public crisis so badly mismanaged that the firm responsible for managing other people's public crises became the story everyone in the industry was watching with their hands over their mouths. And in the middle of it all, Harrison Velt called me again. Not to apologize, to beg, "Stay with me," because what I decided to do next is the part nobody expected, including me. To understand what happened in that bridal suite, you need to understand what I had built inside that firm and how carefully Harrison had learned to wear it as his own. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, second of 4 kids. Dad taught high school history and coached varsity soccer. Mom was a social worker who drove 40 minutes each way to a county office that was always underfunded and always full. We were not a family of grand gestures. We were a family of showing up every day, quietly. On time, that ethic was the first thing I brought to every job I ever had. It was also, I would later understand, the thing that made me incredibly easy to take advantage of. I was not the loudest person in any room I entered. I was not the one raising my hand first or arriving at networking events with a stack of business cards and a prepared elevator pitch. What I had always been, was the person who understood a problem faster than anyone else in the room and found a solution before most people had finished describing the problem out loud. In communications, that skill is rarer than people think. The industry is full of people who are magnificent at performing confidence. Actually solving the problem is a different talent entirely. I studied communications and political science at Ohio State, graduated with honors, moved to Washington, D.C. at 22 with 2 suitcases and a job offer from a mid-sized PR firm that paid me $41,000 a year and expected 60-hour weeks. I gave them the 60 hours. I gave them more. In 2 years, I had managed 3 crisis accounts that the senior team had quietly decided were unwinnable. I won 2 of them. The third I managed down from a catastrophe to a contained story that disappeared from the news cycle in 11 days. My senior director at the time told me I had an unusual instinct for narrative control. I told her I just paid attention to what people were actually afraid of, not what they were saying they were afraid of. She recommended me to Harrison Velt. He was 41 when I met him. Silver-templed custom suit, the kind of handshake that tells you immediately this is a person who has practiced his handshake. He was building something, he said, something serious. A firm that would work at the intersection of strategic communications, crisis management, and policy influence. He had the vision and the relationships. He needed someone who could execute. I was 26. I took a small pay cut and a large promise of equity and walked into Velt Strategic with everything I had. Within 18 months, I was running the crisis division. Within 3 years, I had tripled its revenue. Within 5 years, the crisis division was the most profitable arm of the firm and the primary reason new clients came through the door. Harrison was excellent at being Harrison, dinners with senators, keynotes at industry conferences. His face on a panel at Davos one year, photographed next to 2 Fortune 100 CEOs. He was the brand. He curated himself with the precision of someone who understood that in this industry, perception is the product. I was the work, not entirely invisible. My name was on reports. I was in client meetings. I was the person clients asked for specifically when things got bad enough that they needed someone who actually knew what they were doing. But the credit flowed upward. It always does in firms like that. The person with their name on the door absorbs the reputation of everyone working behind it. I told myself it was fine, that my time was coming, that the equity Harrison had promised would eventually formalize what everyone inside the firm already knew. I also fell in love, James Ackafer, a structural engineer I met at a friend's birthday dinner who had absolutely no interest in communications strategy and an enormous interest in how buildings stayed standing. He was steady in a way I hadn't known to look for. Unhurried, the kind of man who listens like he means it and asks follow-up questions because he actually wants to know. On our second date, he said, "You seem like someone who holds a lot together for other people. Who holds it together for you?" I didn't have a good answer. He decided quietly that he would. We got engaged after 2 years, set the wedding for the following spring. And around the same time, I was choosing centerpieces and debating invitation fonts. Something was shifting inside Velt Strategic that I was too busy to see clearly. A restructuring, new equity partners brought in from outside, a reorganization of division leadership that was framed as growth and was actually consolidation. A man named Marcus Deal, who had spent a decade in corporate communications doing competent, unremarkable work, was appointed co-director of strategy. Marcus was Harrison's answer to a problem he'd never admitted he had. I was becoming more valuable than him, inside the firm, among clients, within the industry. And Harrison, whose entire identity was built on being the most important person in every room, was running out of rooms where that was still true. Marcus would not have that problem. Marcus was pleasant, presentable, and deeply uninterested in outshining anyone. I watched the reorganization happen the way you watch weather change when you're inside a building. You can see it through the glass. You tell yourself it won't reach you. The phone call at 6:52 a.m. was the rain coming through the roof. He had decided weeks before my wedding. The timing, I believe, was intentional, not cruelty exactly, calculation. A moment when he knew I would be too overwhelmed, too emotionally full to fight or make noise or call a lawyer. He was right about one thing. I didn't fight it that morning. I finished getting my hair done. I put on the dress. I walked down the aisle on my father's arm in a church full of people who loved me. And 3 years later, everything Harrison Velt had built came apart in the most public, most painful, most professionally ironic way possible. If you have ever been the engine inside someone else's machine, only to be removed the moment the machine got too comfortable, drop a comment. Because the next part is where the machine started to break down. Here is what I did after the honeymoon. I did not cry. I did not spend a week in bed. I did not call everyone I knew to process the injustice out loud. I made a list. James and I were in a rental cottage in coastal Maine for the honeymoon, and on the second night after I told him everything, we sat on the porch with wine and a legal pad, and I made a list of every actual asset I had that Harrison could not take with me out the door. My relationships with clients, those were mine, built over 7 years of being the person who actually answered the phone at 11 p.m. when something was burning, my methodology. The crisis framework I had developed and refined over a decade of real cases. It existed in documents Harrison owned, but it existed first in my head, and no termination paperwork changes what you know. My reputation inside the industry. Among people who did the work, not the people who attended the dinners, everyone knew who ran the Velt Crisis Division. And I had James, who had listened to me for 2 hours on that porch and then said, with the calm of a man who had spent his career calculating load-bearing structures, "Okay, what's the foundation?" I told him, "The clients." He nodded. "Then start there." I reached out to 3 former clients within 2 weeks of returning from Maine. Not to solicit, not yet just to check in, the way I had always checked in, because that was how I operated. 2 of them told me unprompted that they had heard I'd left Velt and wanted to know what I was doing next. I told them I was figuring that out. Within 6 weeks, I had figured it out. Renner Communications, incorporated in my home state, an office I sublet from a friend's firm 2 days a week to start. A website I built on a Sunday afternoon that was clean and said exactly what I did and nothing extra. I brought in my first retainer client on a Tuesday morning 8 weeks after the wedding. Her name was Dr. Anita Chowdhury. She ran a healthcare nonprofit that was facing a communications crisis over a misreported study. She had called Velt Strategic. Velt Strategic had sent her Marcus. She called me directly the next day. "No offense to the man," she told me, "but I need someone who has actually done this before." I had her crisis contained in 3 weeks. The corrected narrative was running in 4 publications within a month. She referred me to 2 colleagues before the quarter was out. I grew carefully, deliberately. I hired my first employee, a woman named Cecile, who had been a junior analyst at a competing firm and had more raw instinct than anyone twice her seniority. I told her on her first day, "Your name goes on your work here, always." She looked at me like I had said something radical. It shouldn't have been radical. But in this industry, it was. By the end of year 1, Renner Communications had 9 clients and 3 employees. By the end of year 2, 22 clients and 8 employees. By year 3, a profile in a communications trade publication, a speaking invitation at an industry conference, and a client roster that included 2 names I recognized from the Velt strategic pitch deck I had helped build years earlier. Those clients had left Velt, not because of me. I had never solicited them. They had left because the work had gotten worse. Because when you remove the person doing the work and replace them with someone who is chosen for their non-threatening qualities, the work gets worse. Quietly at first, then loudly. The first public sign was a client crisis that Velt Strategic mismanaged so visibly that it became its own story. A pharmaceutical company whose executive misconduct scandal, which should have been containable with the right strategy, instead metastasized for 6 weeks across national news because the response was slow, inconsistent, and clearly written by someone who did not understand the actual audience they were trying to reach. I read the coverage from my office with a complicated feeling I couldn't fully name. Not satisfaction, something sadder than that. The thing you feel when you watch something be broken that didn't have to break, then a second crisis. A technology firm, then an internal whistleblower story at a financial institution. 3 major accounts, 3 public failures, each one documented by industry press that had begun, quietly at first and then explicitly, to question whether Velt Strategic still had the capability it had built its reputation on. Harrison gave an interview in which he described the situation as a period of strategic recalibration. Priya, who had followed my career since the bridal suite, sent me a screenshot of the quote with 3 question mark emojis. I sent back a single emoji because I knew what recalibration meant. I had seen it from the inside. It meant the engine was gone and they were trying to explain the silence. The collapse, when it came, was faster than I expected and worse than even the industry press had predicted. One of the senior partners, a man who had joined Velt 3 years before me, had been managing a side arrangement with a lobbying firm that crossed several ethical and legal lines that I will not pretend to fully understand because they require a law degree to parse cleanly. What I understood was the result: federal inquiry, regulatory investigation, client funds implicated in arrangements those clients had not consented to or, in some cases, known about. Harrison was not directly implicated in the legal violations, but the firm bore his name. And when the story broke on a Wednesday morning in October, above the fold in 2 national publications and leading the industry newsletters before 8 a.m., the clients who had stayed through 3 years of declining work quality finally made the decision they had been delaying. In 4 days, Velt Strategic lost 11 accounts. In 7 days, 2 more partners announced departures. On the 8th day, my phone rang, Harrison Velt. I looked at the screen for a long moment. Cecile appeared in my office doorway. She had seen the name from across the room. "Do you want me to say you're unavailable?" I thought about a bridal suite, a curling iron being set down on a vanity, a phone face down. "No," I said, "I've got it. If you've ever watched something you built be run into the ground by someone who never deserved it and then been asked to come fix it, type structure in the comments, because the next part is where I had to decide what kind of person I actually was." Sophia, his voice had changed. The engineering was gone. What I heard instead was something stripped down, something that sounded, for the first time in 7 years of knowing Harrison Velt, like an actual human being under enormous pressure. "Harrison, I need your help. I know I have no right to ask. I'm asking anyway." I leaned back in my chair. Outside my window, the city moved. Cecile had quietly closed my office door. "Tell me what you need," I said. "Not yes, not no. Tell me what you need." He explained it in the way people explain things when shame and urgency are fighting each other for the front of the sentence. The firm was in crisis, not a crisis they could manage, the kind that managed you. 11 clients gone in a week, staff walking, the 2 remaining partners paralyzed, the investigative coverage feeding on itself. He needed a crisis communications strategy, a real one, built by someone who actually knew how to construct one. His current team, Marcus included, had produced 3 different response frameworks in 8 days, and all 3 had made the coverage worse. He needed me. The room was very quiet. "Why would I do this, Harrison?" He didn't give me the answer I expected. He didn't talk about the firm's legacy or the employees still on payroll or the industry ecosystem or any of the reasonable-sounding things a man in his position might reach for. He said, "Because you're the best at this. And because I know what I did on your wedding day and before it. I knew what I was doing when I did it, and I told myself a story about why it was necessary, and I have told myself that story for 3 years, and I no longer believe it." Silence. "That's honest," I said. "It's the least I owe you." I turned my chair toward the window. Down on the street, a woman was walking a very small dog that appeared to be wearing a raincoat. Normal Tuesday, world continuing. "Here's what I need you to understand," I said. "If I do this, it won't be for you. It will be for the people on your staff who showed up and did their jobs and had nothing to do with whatever decisions got you here. And it will be for the clients whose reputations are tangled up in this through no fault of their own. I understand. My firm runs the engagement, my terms, my strategy. You don't edit the messaging. You don't override the timeline. If I say something needs to be said publicly, it gets said. If I say something does not get said, it doesn't. No exceptions." A pause, shorter than I expected. "Yes. And Harrison, when this is over, when the firm is stabilized or dissolved or whatever it becomes, you tell the truth about where the work came from, not just to me, publicly, in whatever comes next for you." A longer pause. "Yes," he said again, quieter this time. "Then send my office the intake documentation by end of day." "We start Monday." I hung up, called James from my desk. He picked up on the second ring. "You answered," he said. He'd seen the news. He knew. "I did. And I'm taking the engagement." A pause, not surprise. James doesn't do surprise very loudly. "Because of the staff," he said, "and the clients caught in it, and because I'm the only person who can actually fix it, and I'd rather know that than walk away and watch it get worse." "Okay," he said, "I'll make dinner." That's the man I married. The engagement was 8 weeks of the hardest communications work I have ever done. Not because the strategy was complicated. The strategy was clear. Harrison needed to separate himself and the firm's legitimate operations cleanly and publicly from the specific conduct under investigation, communicate directly and without corporate language to affected clients, support his departing staff with public statements that preserved their professional reputations, and give the industry press a factual narrative to replace the speculative one they were currently filling space with. Clean, hard, real. What made it hard was executing it with a client who had spent 20 years performing control and was now required to perform something entirely different: accountability. I sat across from Harrison in a conference room on the third day and put a draft statement in front of him. He read it, his jaw tightened. This is very direct. Yes, it's going to be picked up everywhere. Yes, that's the point. You get ahead of it or it gets ahead of you. We're already behind. This is how we stop falling. He read it again. It says I made decisions that prioritized the firm's growth over adequate oversight of partner conduct. Because you did. He looked up at me. I did, he said, not to argue, to confirm it to himself. Sign it, I said. He signed it. That statement ran on a Thursday afternoon. By Friday morning, the coverage had shifted, not to forgiveness, to something more useful: clarity. The speculative, accusatory tone that had been building for 2 weeks had something concrete to respond to now. Something real. It didn't save the firm. The firm was not savable in its current form. 3 clients came back for transition support. The remaining partners negotiated an orderly wind down. The staff who were still there when I arrived received reference letters I personally reviewed for accuracy and strength before they went out. Cecile asked me one afternoon during the engagement if I felt anything about it. Being there, fixing it, I thought about it. I feel like I'm doing my job, I said, which is what I always felt when I worked there. The difference is now it says my name on the door. She smiled. That's the whole story, isn't it? Yeah, that was the whole story. The last day of the engagement was a Friday. I packed up the temporary workspace I had been using in the Velt offices, said goodbye to the remaining staff, and took the elevator down to the lobby. Harrison was waiting by the door. He had an envelope. My legal team prepared this, he said. It's a formal attribution document. For the crisis division methodology, the client frameworks, the cases during your tenure, your name, your work on the record. I took the envelope, and there's a statement, he said, to the industry press. If you want it released, it says that the communication strategy that built Velt Strategic's crisis division was developed and executed by Sophia Renner, and that she should have received formal recognition for it years earlier. I held the envelope. You don't have to release it, he said. It's yours to decide. I looked at him. A man who had spent his career being the most important person in every room, standing in a lobby that no longer had his name working for it, handing me something he couldn't take back. I'll think about it, I said. He nodded. I walked out into the afternoon, called James. Done, he said. Done. French toast or pasta, I laughed. A real one, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and relieved. French toast, I said. Definitely French toast. I released the statement, not immediately. I sat with it for 10 days, read it 3 times, talked it over with James on a Saturday morning while he made coffee, and Birch, our rescue dog, redistributed herself on the kitchen floor in various directions looking for the ideal patch of sunlight. I released it because it was true. And because somewhere out there was a version of me who was 26 years old and about to walk into a firm where her work would be credited to someone else for years, and I wanted that version of me to know that the truth finds its way out, even when it takes a long time, even when it takes 7 years and a firm collapsing. The response was more than I expected. Colleagues I hadn't spoken to in years reached out. A former client sent a handwritten note saying she had always known and was glad it was finally documented. 3 young communications professionals, all women, all early in their careers, sent messages through my firm's website that said some version of the same thing. Thank you for not staying quiet. I read every one of those messages. I kept them in a folder on my desktop labeled simply, Real. Renner Communications now has 23 full-time employees. We moved into a full floor of a building downtown last year. Natural light, a conference room with a whiteboard wall that is always covered in something, a small kitchen where Cecile has installed an espresso machine that everyone takes very seriously. I spoke at the industry conference I had been invited to the year before. My talk was about crisis communication strategy, specifically about the difference between managing perception and telling the truth, and why in the long run they produce the same result, but one of them requires a lot more maintenance. It was the most attended session of the day. Afterward, a woman who ran communications for a regional hospital system found me in the hallway. "I've been doing this for 20 years," she said, and that was the first time I heard someone say out loud what everyone in the room already knows. "It's easier to say out loud," I told her, "when your name is on your own door." She laughed. She became a client 2 months later. Harrison sent me an email 6 weeks after the statement was released. 4 lines, no performance, no elaborate architecture of language. "Sophia, I don't expect a response. I just want you to know that watching you handle the engagement with the integrity you did after what I did to you was the most professionally humbling experience of my career. You were always the better strategist. I knew it then. I just wasn't ready to be the person who admitted it. I hope the firm becomes everything it should be." I read it twice, filed it in the same folder as the 3 messages from the young communications professionals because it belonged there. Not because I had forgiven everything. Forgiveness is not a light switch. It's a long, slow dimmer, but because it was true, and true things deserve to be kept even when they arrive late. James was promoted to lead engineer on a major infrastructure project last spring. He celebrated by cooking an elaborate dinner and then falling asleep on the couch at 9 p.m. with Birch on his feet, which is his version of a perfect evening. We have a son, 14 months old, named him Eli. He has James's calm eyes, and James tells me regularly my stubbornness. I consider this accurate. James considers it something to prepare for. My parents came to visit last month. Mom sat at our kitchen table holding Eli and looking at the framed firm announcement on the wall. Renner Communications, the one with my name on it, the one that had run in the trade publication, with an expression I recognized from my childhood. The expression she had when she watched me figure something out. Not surprised, just quietly certain she always knew I would. Dad shook James's hand for a long time at the door, meant a few words recognizing each other. It was enough. "Here is what I want to tell you if you're still here. I did not take Harrison's engagement to be gracious. I did not do it for closure. I did not do it because I had forgiven him or because I believed he deserved my best work. I did it because 22 people still on that staff deserved someone who knew what they were doing. Because clients who had done nothing wrong deserved a clean exit, because the work was real and the truth was real, and I was the only person in the room who could handle both. That's not nobility. That's just being the person you decided to be, regardless of who gave you the reason to prove it. Harrison did not fire me because I was replaceable. He fired me because I wasn't. And the difference between those two things is everything. If you work somewhere right now and you feel invisible, feel like the work is yours and the credit is someone else's, hear me clearly, the knowledge is yours, the instinct is yours, the record of what you actually built lives in the results, not in the letterhead. You cannot be restructured out of knowing what you know. Build anyway, name your work, keep your records. Hold on to every piece of documentation you have of everything you ever solved. Because the truth has a way of becoming the most important person in the room eventually. And when it does, you want to be standing next to it, not scrambling to catch up to it. I'm sitting in my office right now. It's early. Cecile isn't in yet. The espresso machine is doing its thing. Through the window, I can see the city in that pale gold light that only exists for about 20 minutes in early morning. I think about that bridal suite sometimes. The curling iron on the vanity, the phone face down. I think about finishing getting my hair done, putting on the dress, walking down the aisle, because some things are not going to wait for someone else's crisis to resolve itself. You finish getting ready, you show up, you build the life that doesn't have anyone else's name on it. And when the crisis eventually calls back, looking for the only person who can fix it, you decide on your own terms whether to pick up. I picked up, and the door stayed mine. If this story landed somewhere real for you, leave a comment. Tell me, would you have taken that call? Would you have walked away? There's no wrong answer. I genuinely want to know. And if there's someone in your life who built something and never got the credit, share this with them today. See you next time.